Okay, let's jump right in. The news lately, I mean, it's just been wall-to-wall drone strikes in the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
Absolutely. You just have to look at the start of June.
Exactly. June 1st, Ukraine pulls off this, well, pretty significant operation. They hit Russian air bases deep, deep inside Russia.
And this wasn't just, a couple of drones finding their way through. Sources are calling it Operation Spiderweb.
Yeah, Spiderweb. And the reports say maybe a dozen, maybe more strategic bombers taken out. That's huge.
It is. But then, just 8 days later, June 9th, Russia hits back. Hard.
Hard is an understatement. A massive barrage, nearly 500 drones targeting Ukraine. People are calling it the biggest single overnight drone attack of the war.
And I think what's really crucial here, the key point, is that while these are massive news events, they're not. They're not happening in a vacuum.
Right.
They're really vivid examples of how unmanned systems, drones especially, are just fundamentally changing warfare. We've got this stack of sources articles, new reports, research papers, and they all dig into this transformation.
That's exactly our plan today. We want to pull out the most important takeaways from all this material.
Get to the heart of it.
Yeah. Understand how drone warfare has evolved in this conflict, what its actual impact is, and, the bigger picture implications. We want to give you that shortcut to really being up to speed on something that's reshaping strategy as we speak.
And, to really get the significance, we probably need a little bit of context. I mean, the conflict has these incredibly deep historical roots going back centuries, really.
Over a millennium, yeah.
But the current phase, the full-scale invasion Russia launched in February 2022, that just completely changed the game.
Right. Russia gave its reasons protecting Russian speakers, dealing with what they saw as a hostile Kiev regime. But obviously that was met with a lot of global skepticism.
To put it mildly.
Yeah.
But the military action itself lit this intense fire under modern military technology development.
And from the get-go, from that 2022 invasion, Ukraine showed this incredible resilience and ingenuity, too.
Yeah.
They weren't just defending passively. They were adapting, grabbing new tech, new tactics almost immediately. We saw them take back significant ground. Remember those counteroffensives in Kharkiv and Kherson?
Proving that, a determined, adaptable force could really challenge a much larger military.
And a huge part of that adaptation, drones, just everywhere.
Which leads us right to the core question, doesn't it? How specifically have drones reshaped this war?
Yeah.
And the sources, they make a compelling case. It's not just a small adjustment. It's a fundamental shift. Strategy, tactics, even just the feel of the battlefield environment.
It really is. Drones are doing everything from frontline recon and attack, close-in stuff, to these deep strikes hundreds of miles behind the lines, even logistics sometimes.
It's become obvious they're a massive force multiplier. You see that point made again and again.
Especially for Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
The sources really emphasize how drones let a smaller, maybe a less conventionally powerful force challenge a much bigger one.
Classic asymmetric warfare, using tech to level the playing field, essentially.
And it fits right into those discussions about a revolution in military affairs, or RMA.
Yeah.
Where new tech just enables completely new ways of fighting.
Enhancing precision, battlefield awareness.
Yeah.
It's unprecedented, really. Those old ideas about achieving air superiority or controlling ground in the traditional sense, they're being seriously challenged by just the sheer number and capability of these unmanned systems.
Yeah, the density is incredible.
Absolutely. And the types, the sophistication, it's all evolving so fast. Russia, for instance, they've leaned heavily on their Lancet loitering munitions.
Right, the Lancet.
The sources describe them as, designed to just hang around, loiter over an area, find a target, and then dive right onto it. They've been pretty effective against vehicles, artillery pieces.
Yeah, and they've also used those Iranian Shahed 136 drones extensively, haven't they? For the long-range stuff.
Yes, the Shaheds. Often called kamikaze drones. They're relatively cheap. I can launch them in big groups, swarms almost, and they fly low and slow for hundreds of kilometers. That makes them a real headache for conventional air defenses.
And the impact of those Shaheds, it's been devastating. Reports detail them hitting not just military sites, but civilian infrastructure, too.
Some sources cite UN figures upwards of 12,000 Ukrainian civilians killed by Russian Shahed attacks since 2022. It's a staggering number.
And while Russia maintains it only targets military objectives, you look at reports like the Human Rights Watch one on Kherson.
That's a chilling read.
It details attacks between June and December 2024, documenting deliberate or, at best, reckless targeting of civilians and critical infrastructure. Nearly 500 injuries, 30 deaths, just in that period, in that region.
And the report makes a crucial point. The drone operators often have high-res video feeds, which raises serious questions about intent, about whether they're truly distinguishing between civilian and military targets.
A very serious question. Now, on the Ukrainian side, their drone game has obviously been boosted significantly by aid. NATO countries providing advanced recon and attack drones.
That's been vital.
But they've also shown incredible domestic innovation, haven't they? The sources really highlight how quickly Ukraine adapted cheap, off-the-shelf commercial drones.
Those quadcopters you can buy online?
Exactly. Modifying them to carry small bombs, grenades, or even just deliver supplies to troops under fire. Amazing resourcefulness.
And beyond those DIY solutions, they've also effectively used systems like the American Switchblade loitering munitions, giving them that precise, disposable strike capability.
What's just, well, mind-blowing, and the major theme in the sources, is the speed of the technological arms race this war has kicked off.
It's incredibly rapid. Both sides are pushing limits, not just using existing tech, but developing and integrating new stuff constantly.
Sources point out Russia started putting machine vision into its Lancet 3 drones relatively early.
Right.
Late 2023, maybe?
Yes, and Ukraine's response wasn't just trying to get hold of similar tech from allies. They really focused on speeding up their own development.
I remember Ukraine's digital transformation minister back in February 2024 publicly talking about creating AI-powered drones, specifically mentioning analogs to Russia's Lancet 3 with machine vision were imminent.
And it wasn't just talk. Sources indicate they showed these capabilities by March 2024. AI-assisted targeting features demonstrated in the field.
Meanwhile, Russia's not sitting idle. They're developing and testing totally new platforms. There were reports mid-May 2025 about Russia starting serial production of new Tuvik light attack drones.
Right, the Tuvik, described as having target homing systems and, importantly, designed with better resistance to electronic warfare.
Yeah.
That's crucial on this battlefield.
And Ukrainian military officials have commented since then on Russia using more drones, unspecified types, but with AI capabilities, likely referring to this growth in machine vision, AI-assisted systems that can keep going even if GPS or radio links are jammed.
It's this constant back and forth, not just about who has the shiniest new toy, but a strategic push to integrate these advanced capabilities across their forces.
Like Russia exploring this concept called digital sky, reported late May 2025, trying to build a single network, linking air, space, cyber assets, using AI for coordination.
And Ukraine has its own equivalent, right? The Delta system.
Yeah, Delta.
Yeah.
Cloud-based platform for real-time situational awareness, data analysis, AI-assisted targeting for commanders.
So you get this intense, rapid cycle. One side fields a new drone or adds AI or improves electronic warfare.
And the other side counters almost immediately, developing similar tech, better defenses, new tactics. It's just this relentless technological struggle.
A race for innovation that's having a profound impact on how the war's actually fought day to day.
And the effects of all this drone proliferation, they ripple out way beyond the immediate combat zone, don't they?
Absolutely. The increased use of drones, especially for these deep strikes or in ways that kind of blur the lines between combatants and civilians, it's really challenging traditional ideas about sovereignty, about international law.
Extraterritorial strikes, yeah.
Yeah.
That raises complex legal questions about jurisdiction, the right to self-defense.
It does bring up echoes of past debates, maybe like the U.S. drone program in Pakistan years ago.
Those controversies. But this conflict, it's bringing these issues to the forefront with an intensity we haven't really seen before.
And huge ethical dilemmas are surfacing. Questions about accountability for remote strikes. How do you even assess collateral damage accurately from miles away?
And the terrifying potential for misuse, right, by non-state groups or maybe even autonomous systems making kill decisions down the line.
These aren't just theoretical anymore. They're active concerns being debated internationally, like at the UN talks on regulating lethal autonomous weapons.
Plus, there's the psychological impact. Just the constant presence of drones overhead.
For soldiers, that means constant surveillance, the threat of a sudden strike out of nowhere. It creates this pervasive vulnerability.
And for civilians in targeted areas, it must foster this deep anxiety, this feeling of being exposed to totally impersonal violence from a machine controlled from who knows where.
It's a heavy psychological burden.
On the flip side, though, for Ukraine, their success with drones, their innovation, it's become this powerful symbol.
A symbol of resilience, yeah. Ingenuity, fighting back against a bigger enemy.
And you see Ukrainian leaders using that narrative, right? Showcasing their army of drones to rally people at home, keep morale up, and build support internationally. framing their tech adaptation as part of their national identity, their struggle.
It really is a complex picture. These systems are vital military tools offering precision, maybe reducing risk for the operators.
But they also inflict immense suffering and just reshape the whole experience of war for everyone involved.
And the narratives around them, amplified by social media, showing drone strikes almost in real time, that heavily influences public perception, international pressure.
We also shouldn't forget the economic side. This war has triggered a massive surge in global funding for unmanned systems, R&D, procurement.
Nations everywhere are looking at their defense budgets, shifting investments towards more tech-driven, often drone-heavy solutions. They see this as the future.
Which kind of brings us full circle back to those dramatic events we started with. Ukraine's Operation Spiderweb on June 1st. That felt like a watershed moment.
Unprecedented, really, in its apparent scope and sophistication. The sources talking about it describe incredible planning, maybe 18 months in the making.
The details emerging are wild. Allegedly smuggling 117 drones deep inside Russia, hiding them in wooden cabins on trucks.
And then launching them remotely near the airfields to swarm multiple strategic bomber bases simultaneously. That suggests remarkable operational security, remarkable complexity.
It was clearly designed to hit high-value targets, going after those nuclear-capable bombers like the Tu-22 confirmed destroyed at the Balea base.
Yeah.
That's a significant blow.
President Zelensky estimated it took out maybe 34% of Russia's strategic bomber fleet. That number might be hard to verify exactly.
But the core strategic success is clear, isn't it? Using relatively cheap unmanned systems to inflict potentially billions of dollars in damage on critical hardware, with minimal risk to their own forces.
And while the scale of Spiderweb might be new, the basic idea using smuggled or long-range drones for deep strikes against supposedly secure targets, it's not entirely without precedent.
Right, the sources mention similar methods attributed to covert ops, maybe in Iran, or attacks by groups like the Houthis in the Middle East, using drones against oil facilities or bases.
Even years back, opposition forces in Syria hit Russia's Hymim airbase with fairly simple DIY drones. So the vulnerability was known to some extent.
Ukraine just executed it on an industrial scale this time. And then barely a week later, June 9th, Russia's direct, massive response. That wave of nearly 500 drones.
And Russian officials were very clear. This was direct retaliation for the bomber base strikes. They specifically mentioned targeting Ukrainian air bases, like the one at Dubno in western Ukraine.
At the same time, Russia's defense ministry was claiming success shooting down dozens of Ukrainian drones over multiple Russian regions, including 2 that reportedly hit an electronic warfare plant near Moscow. It's just this constant tit for tat.
This cycle of action and reaction, mostly done with drones now, it just highlights how central they've become.
And despite some small signs of cooperation, like occasional prisoner swaps,
Which do continue sporadically, yes.
peace talks seem completely stalled. President Putin has repeatedly said he intends to continue the war until his conditions are met.
Which suggests this tech arms race, this drone-centric warfare, is likely to just keep going.
And for other countries watching this unfold, it's like an unavoidable, real-world laboratory for future defense.
Especially for major powers, nuclear powers included. The vulnerability of static, high-value assets like bombers sitting on tarmacs. That lesson from Ukraine's strikes is critical.
So the sources talk about the urgent need for better air defenses, better sensors, better command and control, even just building more hardened shelters for important stuff.
It also forces a rethink of strategic stability ideas. One source made an interesting point. The old assumption that any attack on nuclear-related assets must lead to immediate nuclear escalation. Well, it hasn't been borne out here. Despite these major strikes, there's been restraint observed.
It's a lot to take in, definitely. But the transformation is undeniable. We've seen how drone warfare has just fundamentally altered strategy, tactics, even the human side of the conflict.
Technology as a massive force multiplier, enabling these asymmetric fights, getting woven into national identity itself.
From precise military strikes and intelligence gathering, all the way to causing devastating civilian casualties and infrastructure damage. Drones are this incredibly complex, powerful, dual-edged sword.
And the implications go far beyond Ukraine. International law, military ethics, future defense planning worldwide, everyone's grappling with this, including nuclear powers facing new vulnerabilities.
The technological arms race clearly isn't slowing down.
Which really brings us to a final, maybe provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over after this deep dive. Given everything we've discussed, The rapid advances, the proliferation of drones we see in Ukraine, how they're getting cheaper, easier to modify, smarter with AI and machine vision, easier to hide and launch from anywhere.
Yeah.
What does the normalization and spread of this kind of warfare, low-cost entry, high-impact potential actually mean for global security, for the nature of conflict itself, well beyond Ukraine's borders?
That ability to conduct sophisticated strikes from afar.
Yeah.
It's becoming accessible to way more actors than ever before.
Exactly. Something that demands some serious thinking, I think, for anyone concerned about future stability.